Hey, for victims and villains, my name is Josh, and we got another holiday to celebrate here with Friday the 13th, and we're bringing back an oldie but goodie tradition. I'm joined by one of my good friends in the world of podcasting and in life as well, Mr. Anthony Rippo from the Retro Gamers Podcast.
Josh, man, it's good to be back. Thank you for having me again for another Friday the 13th. I've been here for almost all of them.
Who would have thought that? I remember when we first started this series back in 2000. I want to say it's like 16.
Maybe. I think it
No,
was no, I think it was later than that because if we
yeah,
started in 16, I think we would have been done by now, even though we did miss a couple.
yeah, 20. I think it was probably say it was probably 2018.
Yeah,
Um,
that sounds
where
about safe.
I had never seen I'd never seen any of these movies,
Yep.
and was like, you were like, oh man, you should definitely watch it. And I was like, all right, we're gonna watch the first one. We'll podcast about it. That'll be it. And then we got to the end of that podcast, and I was like, this might be a really long commitment, but would you want to do a Friday the 13th movie every Friday the 13th until we get done with the series?
And we did. And we did. We committed to it. Who knew like 8 years later we'd still be sitting here talking about Friday the 13th, and yet here we are. It goes to show you that couple of things. One, there aren't as many Friday the 13th as I thought. Not counting the ones that we skipped, because we did have to skip a couple times. And two, I did not expect this to be as enjoyable an experience because a lot of these movies are just bad.
They're so bad. I remember I would watch them for the first time for like the first, I think 4 or 5 we had did it that way. And then I eventually got tired because at that time I still had a local mom and pop video store I was renting these things from.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had like gotten a Christmas bonus, and I was like, Shout Factory had just putting out that beautiful box set, and I was like, I think I'm gonna buy it.
Which I still
And
want, by the way. I still want that set.
it's so beautiful. And I remember watching it, like binging the entire series front to back
I remember you telling me
and
this.
texting you while I was doing it. And you were like, I don't know if I like you. I feel like it ruins the experience of you watching them.
Yeah, but you know what? It worked out in the end, though, because you still had to circle back and watch them one of them every Friday the 13th just to re-educate yourself on them so we can talk about them. So it wound up working.
I think overall, I can confidently say now that we're at the end of this, which I guess for this episode, we're going to be doing and covering the remake, the Michael Bay remake, 2009. Next month for Friday the 13th, we're gonna bring on my boy Brandon, and we're gonna do Freddy versus Jason. We've been talking about doing that for about 2 years now, and I told him if we ever did an episode on it, he would be the guy I did because to bring on with that. But the I think what's really funny is I now that we're at the end of this, I can confidently say that I am not really a Jason Voorhees fan.
Okay. You know what? I can understand that. I know I have a lot of friends because I'm a huge horror fan, always have been ever since I was a kid. When these movies were still coming out in the theater, I do remember being, I don't know if I was like 10 or 11 years old. I can't remember how old I was at the time, but seeing Jason Takes Manhattan in the actual movie theater, even though it was rated R and I wasn't supposed to go. So like I go all the way back. And I remember Jason definitely, at the time, you had to weigh the top three, right? It was always the argument amongst friends. It's like who's the best killer, Jason, Freddy, or Michael Myers, and that was always the argument. You had to pick one of those three,
Michael.
and everybody would argue left and right. You know, I was always going to be the Freddy Krueger guy. Freddy Krueger is my favorite hands down, and you know, but Jason. The thing about Jason though is that he does rack up a body count. He's
He does,
really good at that. And probably of those three, he probably has the highest body count, if I had to guess.
probably.
Yeah. So when you're going into a Jason movie, you know you're gonna get a lot of murder. There's just a lot of kills that are gonna happen. But I do agree with you. It's not I am a Jason fan. I will sit down and watch Jason movies, and there are a few in the series overall that I think are solid. And we've had agreements and disagreements on this over the course of, these 8 years.
I will say probably my favorite entry into this series remains 6.
Oh, 6. Okay.
Jason
Jason Lives.
Jason Lives.
Okay.
And I love that, but also like I have like a soft spot for like the New Line trilogy era. I love the ideas that Jason Goes to Hell plays with. I love that it's a love letter to like that era of horror from the Jason glove, but also at the same time, or sorry, the Freddy glove, but also having the Necronomicon in there. And just some of the ideas that it plays with. I love the idea of Jason in space and how they orchestrated that. It's always nice to see David Cronenberg kind of pop up in that space. And I love Freddy versus Jason. It was like one of the first films I ever saw of either of those franchise, if not the first. But I am a Michael boy through and through.
Yes.
So much so that I have him tattooed on both of my hands. It was my first introduction into the genre of horror and slashers. And I recently, just this past week, just rewatched Scream and did not realize, or I guess had not paid attention, like how closely the kind of the climax of Scream is like runs parallel with the climax of Halloween, so much so that you actually are like watching it happen with the soundtrack in that film.
Yes, well, I mean, because it's playing on the TV, so yeah, which is amazing. Scream, I can talk about ad nauseum, but that's not why we're here today. We're not doing a Screamathon, but maybe we should do a Screamathon.
We should. Maybe that's
and if we do that, I have a few friends who would happily join that podcast episode, those podcast episodes. But we'll sidebar about that. Let's get back to Friday the 13th, since we are on Friday the 13th. And we're talking about the ill-fated 2009 remake, where they did everything in their power to make you not like this movie.
This is one of those, I talk often on our channel about movies that I don't necessarily like, but I see kind of the angles of where the filmmakers were trying to go and respect that movie. Respect it. And this is one that I will throw a light respect to. Because one of the fun facts that I learned before we started is that Michael Bay was kind of the king of these remakes of this era at the time. I mean, he started with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, they went and did, Hills Have Eyes. It might not have been, but like, I mean, they remade like everything from like the 70s and 80s during this era. And
yeah, they did.
He had Michael Bay actually walked out of the movie mid premiere because of the amount of sex that was in this movie.
Wow. I didn't take him as a prude. I thought he was kind of. See, I thought his involvement in this was more minimalist, because he was more a producer than anything.
So he is a producer into this one, but I will go back to like what I was saying about this being a movie that I respect but not necessarily like. I understand now when you watch this movie, there are elements and nods to the first original three trilogies, or first, sorry, original trilogy of films from the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
that you can see that they're paying homage to. And
In a way, yes.
yeah, I mean, you have the cold open that does like the ending, the big twist of the first film with Pamela Voorhees. You got Baghead Jason in this, and then you got Hockey Jason. So you're kind of
Yeah.
playing on those three iconic eras.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that was my first point. That was one of my first points of contention with the film, too, because I felt like they were trying to fast forward
Hmm.
in the remake to get to where they wanted to go, which was Jason in the hockey mask. And I thought that in doing so, they left what lore we really had of Jason kind of behind, because it's like, oh, let's rush through the mom part. Okay, now let's rush through the second. Let's rush through the second one where, you find out that, Jason's still listening to his mom in his head, and you find the severed head in the cabin and all that stuff. Like, I felt like it felt like obligatory for them to just go through those motions so they can get to um Hockey Mask Jason. And I think nothing showed that more to me than the cold open, because when you watch a cold open for a horror movie, I mean, usually it's like the first 5 or 10 minutes. This was like almost a 20-minute open before we got the title.
It's so long.
Yeah.
Like this, like cold open, like like cold open and like the Baghead stuff that like really don't have this like any weight to the actual film. Like the bulk of this film with like the cast of these characters that whose names are so forgettable that I can't even remember them right now.
Oh, you mean in the first batch?
I
Like
mean
the first ones
the
that go camping in
the
the cold open?
oh, you mean the pot ones? The ones searching for
Yes.
pot?
Yes.
I mean, them searching for pot is more memorable than a lot of the stuff that
Yeah.
is in the majority of the remainder of this
Mhm.
film.
Yeah, but the cold open to me, like I said, like it felt like they were just going through the motions to check some boxes. Where it's like, okay, we killed the mom. Okay, box checked. Okay, now we have a group of teenagers or young adults. They're going to sit around and one of them is going to tell us the story of Jason. Okay, check that box. Okay, now we're going to kill all of them off. We're going to introduce the mother's head, and we're going to check that box. Okay, good. Now we can get to the movie, and that's exactly what it felt like to me. And then as a nod to Michael Bay, because Michael Bay is notorious for doing this in his movies. I don't care what anybody says. I don't think it's a good directing choice, but in this movie, at least in the beginning, killing characters off screen was driving me crazy. Like Wade's death, the one who finds the pot.
Yeah.
You see Jason rush him, and then we cut away. And I know that they want and then you see the reveal of him being dead. But I'm like, well, I go, it's a horror movie. It's a Friday the 13th movie. I go, we're here to watch him murder them, not like cut and move on. You know what I mean? Same thing with the guy who gets pulled through the floorboards.
Yeah.
Like same thing where it's like, up, cut, we're done. And I'm like, okay. I go, you guys really aren't understanding how Jason works then.
No.
And that was like the first issue I really had with this piece. Or the
I
second
also
one.
we talk about the different eras of that this film plays with. I think about the Rob Zombie remake of Halloween that came out 2 years prior to this.
Yes.
And I think specifically about how they nourished Michael throughout the course of that first half of the film, to where you might see the actual like iconic mask in the film in his childhood for within the first half hour of that movie, but you don't actually get to see him become Michael Myers until like almost over an hour into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that everyone's there for. That's the thing that we all want to see. And you're kind of also getting to check out and let see this version of Haddonfield, see this version of Dr. Loomis. You really get to kind of see those iconic and like how Zombie specifically interprets them. And that, for as much as I have a love-hate relationship, particularly with that movie, that's always been something I've always really liked that Zombie did, is allow those elements to breathe and breathe on their own and feel unique. Whereas this film feels like, hey, boys and girls, do you remember Baghead Jason? Or do you remember that Mrs. Voorhees is really the killer in the first film? Like,
Yep.
those elements I feel like just felt so rushed, and they just don't feel like they're handled with care at all. Because when you look and you ask people, I mean, going back to Scream and the opening, you know, who's the killer in Friday the 13th? Everyone will say Jason Voorhees, but it's actually Pamela Voorhees from the first film. So of
Yep.
course you have to have that.
Yeah, of course. Like, and yeah, like you said, like they're trying to put what limited uh history there is in Jason's past, so that they can just get to the part of Jason killing people. And I understand their desire to do that, because the money is made with Jason. The money's not made with Pamela. So it makes total sense why they would do that. It's just the way they went about it seemed rushed, like you said, and just off. And elements of Jason's character kind of got lost in the shuffle with it too. Like I said, with the off-screen deaths. And then as the movie goes on, you know, the way that Jason kind of acts with you know, even something as simple as like running after people, or some of the choices that they made with him, with the things that he did. He was a very tidy murderer in this film. I made a note of that. Like,
Did you say he was a very tiny?
tidy, Tidy. I thought like he cleaned up his murders really well. They weren't overtly um gory or graphic, in my opinion.
He's a serial killer. He's not an inhuman person.
But he's an undead serial killer.
That's very true.
You know, I mean, if you
Oh,
think
when you
it,
become undead, they teach you how to be tidy.
yeah, I guess so, like, yeah, and that's where like a lot of the things became like where the lines get blurred here a little too much, where Jason's undead, but then he keeps somebody alive because she found a locket that she's wearing that belonged to his mom, and like it fools him into thinking that she's the mom. Like, they never really go there or answer it, but it's like you have to sit there and like they've tried to humanize him in some way, which also kind of made no sense and ate up time in the film that it didn't need to. So that's why, like, I felt like Jason wasn't truly Jason, in my opinion.
No. Yeah, and for as much as like I will give shit, I like Derek Mears as Jason. I think he's, while it doesn't feel like it is the character of Jason, I will also say that I thought that the presence of Mears is good. Like
Mhm.
there's an intensity to him. I like the fluidity, the way that he moves. And this guy was at a con that we had covered last year and looked really, really freaking gnarly. In person, this dude is like a skyscraper. Um,
Mhm.
but like he almost kind of has this like hulking presence to him that actually makes him feel intimidating. Because I know we talk about Jason having this like really high body count, but for me, and like especially that early Paramount era of it before we get into the New Line stuff in the 90s and the 2000s, the original 8 films, there is this, like 2 through 8, this increasing level of schlock, with the
Mhm.
exception of probably. I feel like you can't see. I feel like you cannot put New Beginning in that conversation.
No,
Um,
you can't really can't.
but there is this like almost like level of like schlock, and so like oftentimes when I think of Jason personally, I associate him with kind of this like 80s camp, to where he doesn't feel intimidating. But Michael Myers, for example, like, and even like Ghostface, like there's these like levels because they exist outside of that era, and they feel almost really grounded. While they do eventually kind of get kind of wonky in later entries,
Mhm.
they feel like actually like terrifying.
Yeah. Well, and I think a big part of that though too when we're talking about these guys is suspense.
Yeah.
Playing with suspense is key to really making a a killer more frightening, because you as an audience member, you're sitting there and you're watching the way a character is walking, and the way that the camera is looking at them, and the way that the lighting is, and how long they play with all of that before you see whichever killer it is pounce. And a lot of that helps build their character. It's what we don't see sometimes that makes them stronger, scarier, um, to deal with. And Jason's one of those killers where you don't do that. Like they never really did that to a great degree with him. You always saw him in the moment. Like somebody's running from him, they're always looking behind, and there he is. Every so often he'd pop up behind them for a bit of a jump scare, but for a lot of the films, at least in my opinion, and as I'm remembering, you know, the the selling point for him is that he's this big hulking scary creature in front of your face, and to sell that he has to be in front of your face.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I also kind of like the idea that Jason has this like underground bunker where he keeps it now, like keeps his victim
Mm-hmm.
conceptually. I hate the idea because I think it completely pisses on the idea of the final girl that this entire series made so well, because it essentially was, when you think about the iconic final girls of this series, it's because they've gone toe to toe with Jason and lived to tell the tale. He essentially like takes the final girl, puts her away for 2/3 of the film, and then her brother manages to find her and then whisks her away. Like, I
Yes.
think that feels kind of like a cop out for a final girl card, in my opinion. And again, completely feels disrespectful to the idea that this series kind of essentially usher in.
Yeah. Well, and again, that whole thing, like to me, that was like one of the biggest failures of the film was just keeping that final girl alive as a and again, I think this was also a victim of the times like you were talking about earlier, where you had the Halloween remake and all these things where they were doing their best to try and give these killers more story, because it was in the early 2000s when all of a sudden it was really cool to to make movies where we focus on the killers. House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil Reject, right? A lot of Rob Zombie stuff did this. Um, like
Right.
humanizing the killers, and we're getting people to go along with them. And I think that this one just fell victim to it, and it didn't work the way the other ones did, because you weren't dealing necessarily with a mortal killer. This was an undead killer. And I think, yeah, and I think the whole idea of like keeping the final girl, whose name was Whitney, that just came back to me, keeping Whitney alive for the majority of the film, because she's wearing that locket, it just didn't ring true enough to me. I get the locket is
No.
a equivalent to the mom's sweater in part
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
I got where they went with it, but it just it didn't ring true the way that it should have.
This movie is just a mess, and it's kind of a reminder of why if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. Like,
Yes.
I am pretty outspoken on like my love for certain remakes, thinking that I like the ideas that they done, or like I like how they took this more this this concept or these characters and made them modern. Like, I am one of the very few people that actually liked the Child's Play remake and kind of how it modernized Chucky, even though it's technically bloody. I really also am like, I'm fiercely outspoken on Rob Zombie's second Halloween movie. It's one of my favorite films of all time.
I'm sorry.
We talk after, and I tell you stories as to why it is. And then you might not feel so sorry.
I'll feel more
But
sorry.
yeah, you might feel more sad. Who knows?
We'll see.
But nothing can be as sad as this movie. That's just
Well,
yeah.
I was gonna say, let's get into the meat of it a little bit. I want to, like, especially because like there's so much bashing I want to do with this. I'd like to talk a little bit about a positive, like maybe one or two positives in the movie if we can find them. And the one that
I got one for you.
yeah, and I got one too. The one I want to throw out there is Jenna. And Jenna is I think her name was Jenna. She was the girlfriend of the jerk who wound up helping Clay find Whitney. Like, she goes out on the search with him and everything like that. And I really enjoyed the way they had her character kind of even though she had the boyfriend, she's like, she realized the seriousness of the situation and the need that obviously Clay had trying to find his sister, that she was willing to step away from her boyfriend and what they were doing there to help him out. And I thought that was like, and I just liked the dynamic between her and Clay, and it worked really well for me in the film. They were probably the only two characters, to be honest with you, that I really enjoyed following in the film. If I had to follow any of these guys, it was definitely those two. Everyone else I could care less about.
This is the thing that I miss about the early 2000s and films that existed before it, to where you could have a male and female like dynamic and it be completely platonic. Like, it didn't need to feel like it was romantic in any way, shape, or form. And they are the anchors of this movie 100%. I mean, yes, everyone's coming for Jason, but I really liked their dynamic, Clay and Jenna throughout the course of this as well. My one, all right, so I have two. I really liked the under the dock kill is probably my favorite one, where he like hits the knife through the dock and then like catches the girl's head and then like it bounces off. Like, that's such a cool one.
Yes.
But I think this movie just honestly looks really good. Like, I literally like the cinematography in this, which is done by Daniel Pearl. I think he does an incredible job here for how bad this movie is. It looks at least somewhat decent.
Well, the look of it is decent. I will say the scene you mentioned with the girl getting the machete was great, but here's where I felt the scene failed, is the fact that, and I wrote this as one of my notes, where I pointed out death by daylight, where we're killing people in the middle of the day and removing a big important component to the horror and the scariness of it all. Like, there's a reason why in most horror films, or a lot of horror films, where the killing happens at night, because there's that innate feeling in all of us, that feeling of like, oh my God, it's dark outside, and you know, you're running for your life and there's nobody around who can save you. When you're doing that in the daylight, it and you remove that, it doesn't feel as intense. So even though that was happening to her, the suspense wasn't working for me because I was so distracted with the fact of this is happening in the daylight.
Yeah. There are very few films I feel like work in the daylight. Like I think about like Midsommar, in terms of like it really uses the daylight to its advantage for both shock, but also at the same time, like there's a layer of it that feels genuinely scary as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, there's no real scares here.
No.
Like this movie is, I joked around before we started recording this, but like this movie quite literally put me to sleep. And if your movie is like that bad, and I granted, I get we're 4 years away from its 20th year anniversary. This movie is terrible. Terrible.
Yes. I agree with you on that, and I'll point out a few other things that I think really just kind of make it. Again, the logic in the film to me kind of just goes out the window completely.
Yeah.
Jason, like you said earlier, Jason has a lair. Jason's running around setting up booby traps in this area. I was like, okay. I go, Jason again, like the Jason I know is just a killer. He's not going to sit there and meticulously set up like booby traps in places and stuff like that. It's like he's just going to go and he's going to kill. And I felt like trying to reinvent him that way, I didn't think worked that well.
No, because that is definitely something you brought up, like the original like trilogy of
Yes.
like Freddy, Michael, and Jason. That is definitely something that Michael or Freddy would do.
I don't even think Michael would do it. Like Michael,
I go back and I maybe not necessarily like an obstacle course, but like he definitely had more fun with his like kills in like early on, and that was something that I think a lot of people forgot about.
yeah. I think that yeah, but with Jason, to me, like that didn't work. I thought that the the wood chipper scene, the two wood chipper scenes, I thought didn't work, and I'll tell you
Yeah.
why I didn't think it worked. Jason's goal is always right. He stays around Crystal Lake. He's going again. He wants to kill the young adults as part of the revenge for one, letting him drown, and two, killing his mom. Right. But then for some random reason, he goes to this local wood chipper guy and kills him. And I was sitting there and I'm like, but why did you go? Like literally in my head, I'm like, what is the purpose of you going there to kill him? And the only answer to that question is because they need to use that scene for the climax of the film.
Yep.
It's just to get us to the wood chipper. So I'm like, so like right there, you're kind of messing it up. It's like Jason doesn't go around just killing people in the town. He only kills people who come to Crystal Lake who fit the, who kind of fit this bill. So, and if they get in his way, like the way the cop did, I'm like, okay, the cop showed up to try and get in his way, fine, you kill him. I was like, but there was no reason to go and kill the wood chipper thing except for the fact that we needed that at the end. And then when you get to the end and you get the, first off, obviously they were so hell bent on doing the final girl thing that they felt they had to kill Jenna after Jenna earned. If there was anybody in the film that I wanted to see survive, it would have been her, because I thought she was the best character. And I understand the law of opposites too, where it's like, oh, it'll be more impactful if you kill her. But the problem is when you don't have anybody, when you haven't latched on to any other character in the movie, and then you kill the one character you are connected to, it has the reverse effect where you're like, oh, you just killed the only person I care about. Now I'm just like not going to care at all. And I felt like that's what happened when they killed Jenna. And then you have the battle on top of the school bus with Jason and Clay, right? And Jason knocks out Clay and then goes into the bus to go get Whitney. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. And I'm like, you've made sure everybody was dead. And then before moving on to the next kill, I go, but him you just leave knocked out on top of the bus to go after Whitney, which made no sense on top of that. And then I see it's a litany. It just keeps going. You get to the wood chipper scene at the end when they kill Jason, right? And they throw the chain into the wood chipper and the chain gets pulled. And then Jason, eventually his head, right, starts getting chopped up in it. But before that, he's fighting against the wood chipper, right? If he's fighting against the wood chipper, that wood chipper would have broken down. It wouldn't keep spinning if the chain's not getting pulled into it. So, like, there were so many things where I'm just sitting there and I'm like, you guys didn't think any of this through. And when I felt like they were just so fixated on trying to redefine Jason that they just sacrificed any type of quality they could have given a film like this. Yeah, and I get it. It's a slasher movie, or, and you don't necessarily do that, but there was an opportunity to, and I just felt like they missed it every single time.
Yeah, I'm so bored by this movie. This movie is definitely one of the lowest points for the franchise.
Yes.
But, I think at that point, this is the first time that Paramount has made anything with Friday the 13th since 1989. And at that point, they stopped making it because they were essentially just repackaging the movies at that point. And this movie definitely kind of like doesn't necessarily do anything well. I think at that time they Platinum Dunes had gotten kind of accidentally struck gold with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake, and that kind of spawned off this like, need to remake every goddamn horror property we can. And
I think a year later, that like My Bloody Valentine even got a remake, and how many people know the first movie, the original.
I didn't know about it until like I was like well into adulthood.
Mm-hmm. I remember it from the video store. I remember the cover art from that.
Yeah, it's a great cover.
Yeah, but like you said, like this thing just got caught up in the whole world of let's do remakes, and if it does well, we'll make more.
And now we're kind of in this landscape. I'm really interested to see how they handle Jason in kind of a new, more modern day, because we're kind of in this modern day landscape where we've moved on from sequels and prequels. Now we do either legacy sequels or requels, which is this idea of we're going to ignore so much of the canon and see how much we can kind of make him relevant. Whereas like, I feel like you can definitely do that with it worked really well with Halloween because, you have a character like Laurie Strode where you have 40 years of trauma literally rolled into that. And so you're exploring how does that affect her as a mother? How did it affect her as a grandmother? How does it affect her as an individual? And you really also, how does something like that also affect characters like Tommy Wallace and Lindsay and the town of Haddonfield. I think you're really able to do that. Like I think about the 2022 Scream and kind of how they're able. So I feel like there are films that work in the modern landscape. I don't necessarily see Jason Voorhees working in a modern sense unless you did like a through like we're gonna go back and do like a direct sequel to like the first film or like some era.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't think they would do that. I think they would just kind of do what this movie did, which was we're just going to tell the story again. We're just going to do a remake. We're not going to do a requel or a sequel. But because of all the reasons you just said, like Jason's one of those ones where it's like, what are you going to go back to? Like, there's not much to go back to. I mean, you can go back to the Tommy character maybe, and bring him to the present, and then have, you know, a connection that way. Because if Jason truly never dies, right, which is the case in all of these things, if Jason truly never dies, then that's basically your ticket in. Because Tommy was the only one in the original, let's say the original 8 or 10 or however you want to play it, right? There were 10, 8, 9, 10, yeah. But he's the only one in the original ones who really survived it twice and kind of just walked away into the sunset. So you could go there if you want to, but I mean, at this point, I think they would just do just a whole new like reboot where it's like, all right, we're going to start from scratch again, and we're just going to make this cool, like they're doing with the TV series now they're coming out with Crystal Lake, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be they're testing the waters, no pun intended, but they're testing the waters, I think, with Crystal Lake to see how that performs. And if it performs really well, then it'll probably open up the world to a new Friday the 13th movie.
I like and I'm interested to see what they end up doing with Jason Universe. I think Sweet Revenge was a good taste of where they could go, potential, whereas when you look at the idea of giving Pamela Voorhees a TV series and kind of going back to literally the bedrock of this series, I think I'm fascinated by it. I don't necessarily say I'm excited for it, but I'm cautiously optimistic for what the series could be. And I think, maybe you can call it creators issues that we've seen in and out of court for the last, 2 decades, or whatever you want to call it, or maybe it's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this movie anymore, this franchise, is any deeper than a guy in a hockey mask killing teenagers.
No, they're seriously, and when they tried to insert lore into it with Part 9, it was just really, really awful. With the Voorhees, the Voorhees knife and all that stuff. It's like they were like desperately trying to put something behind the reason why Jason is here, and that to me just ruined the whole mythos of Jason. Jason is just a kid who somehow drowns, magically grows up, and seeks revenge by killing a bunch of horny teenagers. That's all he is.
Hell was too deep into the franchise. I don't necessarily think it was. I think by that point, when you're 9 films deep, you shouldn't be like, we should rewrite the mythology. Like, that's just dumb. That's dumb as fuck.
Yes. No, it is. And that was the problem with it. And that's why it's like, sometimes you just need like sometimes simpler is just better, right? And Jason is a very simple character. The same way, if you think about it, Michael Myers, with the exception of Part 6, is a very simple character. He is a hold on. He is a very mentally disturbed individual who is obsessed with murdering, at the beginning, murdering his family, right? Murdering his sister. Yeah. Like, that's really, and everything that follows after that, kind of, with the exception of 6, follows that MO where it's all about him. Like, it goes from the sister to the niece, and then, and then obviously we swing back to Laurie. But like, there's a very simple through line to him. Even when they add something, when they start to add a little bit more complexity to him outside of 6 and the Curse of Thorn, it's just a basic, he has a basic drive. Same thing with Jason. Jason is all about revenge against horny teenagers, and that's his drive. Mike, Freddy Krueger, for everything that he's done, his basic is, I'm getting revenge on the parents who murdered me by murdering their children. Like, it, again, that's where it sits. And when you start to stray from that in any of these movies, that's when it starts to get a little like, oh, come on. Okay, now we're really reaching. Again, the Curse of Thorn Michael, the whole Voorhees lore and Voorhees knife thing with Jason. Even Nightmare on Elm Street, when you got to part 6, and all of a sudden it was all about Freddy Krueger and his daughter, and it was like, wait, where is this coming from? Literally just out of nowhere. 6 movies in, where it's like, oh, Freddy had a child. Oh, okay.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, exactly. It's like those types of things. It's like, you're trying to keep a franchise alive because, you want to make money, but sometimes you lose the simplicity of it, and you try and make it more clever or give it more lore so you can expand the universe, and just sometimes that just doesn't work. And in horror movies, a lot of the times it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that if you're gonna have mythology, it has to be done within the first 3 movies, right? Like if you're gonna have stuff that it's gonna read that is gonna write your entire franchise, it needs to be established within the first movie, if not the second or third film.
Yeah.
And then you can have subsequent sequels kind of explore and expand that. We're think about like stepping into a different medium. Superman is one of the oldest characters in pop culture, and they are continuously there's a comic now that just came out where they gave him Goku powers recently. Like, come on. Like, here it is, like, almost over 90 years later, and we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
And still finding new ways to make him modern and complex.
Yep. Well, and here we are talking about Jason, and Jason's been around for, 46 years. And we're still talking about it. And we're still talking about Freddy Krueger, who's been around for 42. And we're still talking about Michael Myers, who's been around for 48, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
So, Michael's turning 50 in a couple of years. But it all comes back to, like, and I say this all the time with these types of films, simpler is better. And this Friday the 13th remake chose not to be simple outside of the teenage characters or the young adult characters that we have, because they were all just caricatures of themselves. Except for the jerky boyfriend, who for some odd reason they made him like a neat freak, just to say, oh, see, there's more to him than just being the jerk. And I'm like, no, he's just a jerk. So
I really wanted more out of this. I've seen this movie before, and God.
Yeah, I got to throw one other thing out there, because this thing was, if I heard this correctly, this was so egregious that I don't know how anybody allowed this to stay in the script. But the scene when Clay is talking to the police officer, I believe, in the beginning, when he gets pulled over, right? And if I heard it correctly, I did not go back to double check, but if I heard it correctly, what he explained was, it was either to the cop or to Jenna. I can't remember who it was. But the story behind his sister was that his sister took care of their mom when the mom got sick with cancer, right? He didn't come back to help because that's the type of character he was. And now obviously he's feeling guilty about it. But the way he explains is that the sister takes care of the mom with cancer. The mom dies. And then he gets worried about his sister because the sister doesn't show up at the funeral. And then he finds out she's missing. Right? That's what I heard. And if that's what happened, all I kept thinking was, wait, sister took care of the mom. Mom dies. Between the mom's death and going to mom's funeral, she goes camping with her friends. And then she goes camping with her friends and then goes missing. And I'm like, wait a second.
everyone grieves in their own way, Anthony. Everyone grieves in their own
I
way.
get everybody grieves in their own way, but like, did that opening scene with those people look like they were trying to distract her from the death of her mom?
No,
So like,
not at all.
but and I would say if this movie was halfway decent, I would go back and listen to that again, but it's not worth my time. But that's what I heard, and I was like, okay. I go, how did that even make it into the movie? Like, you're telling me that she went camping between the mom's death and the funeral, and she went missing, and that's why the brother goes to look for her because like, oh, she didn't show up at the funeral. It's like, yo, I don't think she cared that much if she went camping. It's just a whole mess. One mess
Yeah.
after the other.
Since we are at the end of this series,
Yes,
and we've covered all of them now.
we have.
What is your favorite?
My favorite is, I will still say it because I know you hate it when I say it, but I've always had a soft spot for 4. The final chapter to me has always been, there's something about that one that works for me. I don't know if it was because as a kid, Corey Feldman was in like every movie I saw at the time or not, but there was something about that one that always worked for me. So I have to stay with 4.
I don't necessarily hate 4. I've gone back and since we've podcast and like there have been entries that have definitely grown on me. Like 7 is one that's definitely grown on me.
Oh, 7's fun.
I love 7. 7's so much fun.
Yeah.
3's grown on me. 7 has grown on me. 4 has grown on me. All of the new line era
but which
ones
one?
grown on me.
But which one? If you had to pick one and say this is your favorite, which is it?
Of the entire series,
Yes,
Jason Lives 100%.
6. Okay, and that's that is a fair assessment because like if I don't go with 4, I go with 6. I flip flop between the two of them. 4 and 6 are great.
I don't know. I really wish that they would have done more with Tommy Jarvis as a trilogy, and I equate like the Tommy Jarvis trilogy in the series to the Thorn trilogy from Halloween,
4, 5,
where
6. Yeah.
it has like they both have like strong things, I think, strong ideas, not the greatest execution every time. And the fact that you have a new beginning tossed into there is just weird.
Yes. Well, it was unfortunate that they thought it would make sense to do a completely different Friday the 13th story without Jason.
Yeah.
Had they swapped it out and Jason was the killer in 5, because in all honesty, like if you watch that movie, if they didn't do that reveal at the end that it wasn't really Jason, everything else in the movie still worked as like Jason killing them. Jason decides to go after Tommy for revenge, and he winds up here and starts killing everybody.
Yeah. Well,
so, but yeah, I do agree with you. Like that, Tommy Jarvis to me is the one character I think who, was the strongest character in all of these films because they actually paid attention and they followed him for more than one movie.
Yeah, agreed.
Nobody else really got that treatment. Usually the survivor, like, when Alice survived the first one, she died at the beginning of the second one. And then the second and the third one, the final girls don't come back. And the same thing when you get to 6, actually, I'm sorry, even 4, like all the final girls that survive never come back again. So we don't get continuing stories. Whereas with Tommy, we got a continuing story. In Halloween with Jamie Lloyd, we got a continuing story.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't help this. That doesn't help.
Part 6.
Yeah, none of that helps the one that we had to watch today. And I would like to thank you for making me watch this one again because watching it once wasn't bad enough. I had to watch it twice now. And not only that, I did have to pay to rent it. So
Oh,
that hurt even
see,
more.
this is the reason why I made that investment all those years ago. I was like, oh, it's
Yeah.
$100. I don't have to ever rent anything
Well,
again.
that's okay, Josh.
Sold.
You owe me $3 now.
I
So
mean, I
sad.
also owe you probably at least 2 hours of your life back. Also, after the making you watch the Nightmare on Elm Street remake too. So,
Yes, the movie I promised never to see, you forced me to watch, and good gravy. So terrible.
but where can people find Joe Line, my friend?
Oh my gosh, you can find me everywhere online. The Retro Gamers Podcast is everywhere at the Retro Gamers Podcast. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, Spotify. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can obviously watch us on YouTube and Spotify. And our just brand new, just launched our Patreon page. If you want to support the Retro Gamers Podcast, you can head over there to check out what we have there. There are exclusive videos available for people who choose to subscribe. So go check us out on Patreon as well.
And you guys can find all of our links in the show notes below, wherever you guys are currently listening to this. But most importantly, I want to highlight our mental health resource library. We didn't talk about mental health a lot on this episode. We did talk about how this movie affected our mental health. So if you've never seen this movie, stay away from it.
Yes.
But you guys can follow me. I am at Captain Nostalgia on Letterbox, and you guys can also check out my brand new podcast with my partner Ashley, where we talk about Jaws. It's called The Bigger Boat, and you guys can check it out right here on YouTube. Until next time, remember to stay classy and stay golden. We'll see you guys next time.